Hello, so this is our bus. We've had this bus for 2 years now and have done sort of limited filming. And I wanted to make a video, sort of an intro video to the bus, showing you all the work that's been done in the first almost 2 years of owning it and catch you up to where we are now. And I'd like to do a lot more detailed filming of specific projects we're working on and make videos for each specific project. I think that would be a lot more interesting to watch. So this bus, this is a 2011 International. Its model number is a PB105. It's got a Max Force 7 engine, which I know a lot of people will have something to say about. We've deleted it, and honestly, I feel confident in it. The transmission's an Allison 2500 PTS. We bought it with 270,000 kilometers, and that roughly translates to about 160,000 miles on it. It was from a rural school district. It was very well maintained. It spent its entire 270,000 kilometers on rural highways like this. This was right where we picked it up from. We paid 3,800 Canadian for the bus, which is roughly 2,700 US dollars using today's conversion. I've been keeping an exact spreadsheet of all the costs of everything on the bus right now because I see a lot of videos online where people don't even know how much they've spent on the bus, or they just have a rough estimate. So I want to be able to say exactly how much I've spent and exactly where all that money went. Right now, at about the 2-year mark, we are about 20,000 Canadian into the bus. Originally, this was a 52 passenger bus. Originally had 9 windows behind the driver. Inside, was roughly 6'4" in the center. I could in the center stand up straight, but only in the center, and my hair would just barely touch the roof of the bus. So especially after we've added in a subfloor and all the insulation in the roof, that wasn't going to cut it. There was no way I was going to be crouching the entire time in the bus, so a roof raise was a must for us. The bus is about 35 feet long, and it being a dog-nosed bus, about 5 of that feet is the front engine, which means that we have about 27 feet of living space from behind the driver's seat to the back of the bus. next major part of the bus build is the roof raise, which is by far the biggest project we've done to date. The first step of which is removing all of the old wiring in the bus, and which we eventually replaced with a new wiring harness for the tail lights, as well as removing all the exterior rivets where the new sheet metal is going to slide into place. That was by far the longest process of anything we've done. We used the popular jack stands in each corner that you see a lot of people use online, the exact same setup that you'll see on Skoolie.com. We just made ours with parts from Home Depot, which was super easy to do. It was just some threaded rod with some nuts and washers on it, and a piece of pipe with just 2 little ears welded on it that weld onto the bus. It was super simple to do and made the roof raise process honestly really easy. It took 3 of us 1 day to do the roof raise, from cutting the roof off to getting it up 18 inches in the air and having all of the new supports just tacked in place. We used a Sawzall for the roof raise because we were using square tubing for the new inserts for the new frame of the bus instead of hat channel inserts. It was super easy, super simple. We didn't need to have perfectly straight cuts for inserts. We could just kind of cut haphazardly with the Sawzall, and we made sure all the cuts were just sort of randomly staggered as well, just so there wasn't one single weak point across the side of the bus where all the cuts were. The square tube runs the full length from the top to the bottom you see there of where the new sheet metal is going in place, as well as the 18 extra inches that we raised. So it is a lot more overlap than you would get with just hat channel inserts, and it's welded the whole way up and down the old hat channels, and it's a lot more steel, a lot thicker steel in place, which I think it's honestly way stronger than it even was before the roof raise. We just used a car jack and a fence post to raise the roof. We would slowly have to kind of go to each corner and only raise 1 to 2 inches at a time, and just slide up the nuts on the threaded rod on our little jacks, and keep doing that all the way around until we perfectly had 18 inches all the way around the bus exactly. After we were done, it took 1 day to get to the point where everything was tacked into place. It took another 2 days, full days of just me by myself welding to finish off the welds. That's how much welding there was involved with all of those pieces, because the entire length up and down where it overlaps with the hat channels was one long bead of weld. And now that roof is super strong. For the sheet metal, we used 18 gauge galvannealed steel. And I messed up when measuring it, and I actually got all the pieces cut from the shop a couple inches too short, which really threw a wrench into things, but we ended up just having to use a sort of an extra little strip of metal all the way around, which isn't ideal, but it worked out in the end. For the side pieces, we were able to use a mini skid steer, which came in handy so much during the roof raise process. It made sliding the new sheet metal a breeze. You could just put it right on the bucket and slide it right up into place and hold it there, as well as just holding things like the welder up high made the work a lot easier. Now the rivets, that was another insanely difficult process. I had one side of the bus, I had a big group come out 1 day and were able to knock out all the rivets on one side in a day with about 5 people working on it. The front, back, and the 2 sides, I did mostly by myself, and was a different story. I'd have to do maybe only a little bit at a time here and there. As you can see on the inside, because we used square tubing, we just had to get some thin angled iron and weld that onto the square tube so the rivets had somewhere to attach to on the parts that were raised. After that, next step was we ground down all of the floor, got all the little surface rust out of the floor, and we sealed it with a rust paint and a sealant on top of it so it wouldn't rust again on the floor. The next step was the subfloor. I wanted to do a lot thicker, but we ended up just going with 2 inches of the hard pink foam. Straight on the floor, no framing out the floor or anything, and then 3/4 inch plywood, subfloor plywood right on top of that, and both of those glued down to the floor with floor glue. After the floor was done, we started working on the windows. The windows, we cut out the holes. We made little wooden boxes that are 3 inches thick, because that's what our finished wall thickness will be. We'll have 3 inches of spray foam, and we were able to just mount those windows right into those boxes. So that is pretty much where we've left off after 2 years of having the bus. We've done a lot of other smaller projects that haven't really gotten filmed, like blanking out the back windows here, adding exterior lights, adding a backup camera system, things like that. I plan on making a lot more in-depth videos in the future for specific projects so you can see exactly how we get things done and all the problem solving that goes into it. For example, one video we already have filmed that I plan on making soon is how we made this brand new front door here. I'm excited to make more videos in the future, and hopefully you can see each step of the bus along the way in a separate video.